preparing for a senior information security engineer. At Wells Fargo interview, you've reached Candy Mentor, and this video is for you. We'll walk through 20 key questions you're likely to face. For each question, you'll see a sample answer followed by the key points to cover. Subscribe, like, and share, and drop a topic request in the comments. Question 1. How would you prioritize remediation when thousands of vulnerabilities are reported across a banking environment? In a bank, I would not treat every CVSS 9.8 equally. I would combine CVSS, exploitability, asset criticality, internet exposure, data sensitivity, compensating controls, and business impact. A public-facing payment system with active exploitation gets priority over an isolated lab server. I would define SLAs, track exceptions with risk acceptance, verify remediation, and report trends to leadership. The goal is measurable risk reduction, not ticket closure theater. While answering, focus on risk-based prioritization, not just CVSS. Mention asset criticality, exploitability, threat intelligence, compensating controls, remediation SLAs, exception handling, and executive reporting in a regulated banking environment. Question 2. Walk me through your incident response approach for a suspected ransomware outbreak. Ransomware response starts with containment, not panic. I would validate the alert, identify patient 0, isolate affected hosts, preserve evidence, and check whether credentials or backups were touched. Then I would coordinate with SOC, infrastructure, legal, privacy, and business owners. In banking, communications and regulatory timelines matter. After eradication and recovery, I would drive root cause fixes, tabletop lessons, and control improvements like EDR tuning, segmentation, MFA, and backup immutability. Make sure to cover incident triage, containment, evidence preservation, stakeholder communication, regulatory sensitivity, eradication, recovery, root cause analysis, and post-incident improvements relevant to ransomware in a banking environment. Question 3. What does zero trust mean, and how would you apply it in a large financial institution? Zero trust means I do not assume trust based on network location. I verify user, device, application, and transaction context continuously. Practically, that means strong identity, MFA, device posture checks, least privilege, microsegmentation, conditional access, and detailed logging. For Wells Fargo, I would phase it around high-risk assets first, privileged access, customer data platforms, and administrative paths. The trade-off is complexity, so governance and automation are essential. In your answer, talk about identity-centric controls, continuous verification, device posture, least privilege, microsegmentation, conditional access, logging, phased adoption, and how zero trust protects sensitive financial systems. Question 4. How would you design and tune a SIEM detection for impossible travel or suspicious login behavior? A strong SIEM use case starts with a threat scenario, not a random log search. For impossible travel, I would ingest identity logs, normalize fields, correlate geolocation and time, suppress VPN and known service accounts, then alert only when risk is meaningful. I would map it to MITRE ATT and KK, define severity, test with historical data, and document response steps. The best detections are measurable, low noise, clear ownership, and regular tuning. Be sure to mention threat-driven detection engineering, log normalization, identity telemetry, correlation roles, false positive suppression, MITRE ATT-ACK mapping, severity definition, testing with historical data, and documented response playbooks. Question 5. Explain how you would secure sensitive customer data both at rest and in transit. Encryption protects confidentiality, but key management determines whether it is trustworthy. For data in transit, I would enforce TLS 1.2 or higher, strong ciphers, certificate validation, and MTLS where appropriate. For data at rest, I would use approved algorithms like AES 256, centralized KMS or HSM-backed keys, rotation, separation of duties, and audit logs. In banking, I also validate data classification, retention, and compliance requirements before choosing controls. While answering, cover encryption standards, TLS configuration, certificate validation, key management, HSM or KMS usage, key rotation, separation of duties, auditability, data classification, and compliance expectations. Question 6. How do you control and audit privileged access in an enterprise environment? Privileged access is one of the highest risk areas in a financial enterprise. I would require vaulting, MFA, just-in-time elevation, session recording, approval workflows, and periodic access reviews. Service accounts need ownership, rotation, scoped permissions, and monitoring. I also separate human admin accounts from daily use accounts. If an auditor asks why someone has access, the answer should be traceable to role, business need, approval, and current usage. Make sure to cover privileged access management, vaulting, MFA, just-in-time elevation, session recording, service account governance, access reviews, separation of duties, approval workflows, and audit-ready evidence. Question 7. What are the key controls you would implement to secure workloads in AWS or Azure? Cloud security is shared responsibility plus good engineering discipline. I would start with identity, network boundaries, encryption, logging, and secure baselines. In AWS or Azure, that means least privilege IAM, private endpoints, security groups, KMS, centralized logs, guardrails through policy, and continuous posture management. I would also scan infrastructure as code before deployment. For a bank, cloud controls must tie back to risk, data residency, auditability, and incident response. In your answer, include shared responsibility, IAM least privilege, network controls, encryption, logging, cloud posture management, policy guardrails, infrastructure as code scanning, data residency, and incident response readiness. Question 8. How would you perform threat modeling for a new online banking application? For threat modeling, I first define assets, trust boundaries, entry points, data flows, and actors. Then I identify threats using stride or attack trees and convert them into concrete security requirements. For example, an online banking API needs authentication, authorization checks, input validation, rate limiting, encryption, logging, and fraud signals. The value is early design correction. Finding a broken authorization path before build is cheaper than patching after release. Be sure to mention assets, trust boundaries, data flows, entry points, stride or attack trees, security requirements, authorization risks, abuse cases, and the value of finding design flaws early. Question 9. How would you embed security into a CI/CD pipeline without slowing engineering teams too much? DevSecOps means security controls run where engineers already work. I would integrate SAST, dependency scanning, secret detection, container scanning, IAC checks, and policy gates into CI/CD. Results must be triaged by severity and exploitability, with developer-friendly remediation guidance. I prefer blocking only critical, high-confidence issues to avoid pipeline fatigue. Over time, reusable secure templates and threat modeling improve quality more than late-stage penetration testing alone. While answering, focus on DevSecOps pragmatism, SAST, dependency scanning, secret detection, container and IAC scanning, risk-based gates, developer guidance, secure templates, and reducing late-stage findings. Question 10. How would you design network segmentation for a high-value payment or customer data application? Segmentation limits blast radius when one system is compromised. I would classify zones by data sensitivity and function, then restrict east-west traffic using firewalls, ACLs, security groups, and microsegmentation where justified. For a payment application, database access should come only from approved app tiers, not user subnets. I would validate rules with flow logs and periodic reviews. The key is balancing security with operational reliability and documented change control. Make sure to cover blast radius reduction, zone classification, east-west traffic control, firewalls, ACLs, security groups, microsegmentation, flow log validation, rule reviews, change control, and operational impact. Question 11. What controls would you recommend to reduce phishing and business email compromise risk? Phishing defense needs layered controls because users will eventually click. I would combine secure email gateways, DMARC, SPF, DKIM, URL rewriting, attachment sandboxing, browser isolation for risky links, MFA, and rapid reporting workflows. On the detection side, I would monitor suspicious mailbox rules, consent grants, impossible travel, and anomalous forwarding. Training helps, but I would not rely on awareness alone. Measurable reduction comes from controls plus fast containment. In your answer, talk about layered email security, DMARC, SPF, DKIM, sandboxing, URL protection, MFA, user reporting, mailbox anomaly detection, training limitations, and rapid containment workflows. Question 12. How would you implement DLP for regulated banking data without disrupting business operations? DLP works only when data classification is clear. I would identify regulated data like PII, account numbers, payment data, and confidential business records, then apply controls across email, endpoints, SaaS, cloud storage, and removable media. Rules need tuning to reduce false positives and support business workflows. In a bank, I would pair DLP with encryption, access reviews, user coaching, and incident response. Blocking everything creates workarounds. Risk-based control is stronger. Be sure to mention data classification, PII, and payment data, email, endpoints, SaaS, cloud storage, removable media, false positive tuning, encryption, access reviews, coaching, and risk-based enforcement. Question 13. How do you approach security compliance and audit readiness in a financial services company? I treat compliance as evidence of control operation, not a substitute for security. For Wells Fargo, relevant expectations include GLBA, FFIEC guidance, PCI DSS for card environments, SOX-related IT controls, privacy obligations, and internal risk frameworks. I would map controls to requirements, maintain evidence automatically where possible, track exceptions, and test control effectiveness. The best audit conversations are simple. Here is the control, owner, evidence, gap, and remediation plan. While answering, distinguish compliance from security, cover GLBA, FFIEC, PCI DSS, SOX-related controls, privacy obligations, control mapping, evidence collection, exception tracking, testing effectiveness, and remediation planning. Question 14. What are the most common API security issues, and how would you prevent them? API security failures usually come from broken authentication, authorization, or input handling. I would enforce OAuth or mutual TLS where appropriate. Validate JWTs correctly. Check object-level authorization, rate limit abuse, and log security events. For customer-facing banking APIs, I would also consider transaction risk, replay protection, schema validation, and secrets management. Testing should include negative cases, not only happy paths. The biggest mistake is trusting the client. Make sure to discuss authentication, authorization, object-level access control, OAuth or MTLS, JWT validation, rate limiting, replay protection, schema validation, secrets management, logging, and negative testing. Question 15. What is the difference between authenticated and unauthenticated vulnerability scanning? Authenticated scanning gives a deeper, more accurate view because the scanner can inspect installed packages, registry settings, missing patches, and configuration issues. Unauthenticated scanning sees the system like an external attacker and is useful for exposed services. I would use both. For enterprise remediation, I care about asset ownership, scan coverage, credential health, false positive validation, and change windows. Poor inventory makes even the best scanner weak. In your answer, cover scan depth, patch and configuration visibility, external attacker perspective, use cases for both approaches, scan coverage, credential health, false positives, asset ownership, and remediation workflow. Question 16. How do you evaluate and respond to endpoint detection and response alerts? Endpoint security is about prevention, detection, and rapid response. I would baseline CIS hardening, patching, disk encryption, application control, least privilege, and EDR coverage. For EDR alerts, I look at process trees, parent-child relationships, command lines, network connections, persistence, and lateral movement indicators. In a large bank, deployment health matters as much as alerts. If agents are missing or outdated, visibility and response quality collapse. Be sure to cover endpoint hardening, EDR coverage, process trees, command line analysis, network connections, persistence, lateral movement, alert triage, agent health, and response actions in large enterprises. Question 17. How should secrets such as API keys, certificates, and passwords be managed securely? Secrets should never live in code, tickets, spreadsheets, or pipeline logs. I would use a managed vault, short-lived credentials where possible, encryption at rest, access policies, audit logging, and automated rotation. CI/CD jobs should retrieve secrets at runtime using workload identity, not shared static keys. When a secret leaks, I rotate first, then investigate impact. Good secrets management reduces both breach probability and forensic uncertainty. While answering, mention avoiding hard-coded secrets, managed vaults, short-lived credentials, encryption, access policies, audit logging, automated rotation, workload identity, CI/CD integration, and incident response for leaks. Question 18. How would you assess the security risk of a third-party vendor that handles customer data? Third-party risk is critical because vendors can process data or connect into internal environments. I would assess data type, access level, hosting model, security controls, incident notification terms, subcontractors, and regulatory obligations. Evidence might include SOC 2 reports, penetration tests, architecture diagrams, and remediation plans. For high-risk vendors, I would require continuous monitoring and clear offboarding. The question is not whether they have controls, but whether those controls match our risk. Make sure to cover third-party risk, data sensitivity, access level, hosting model, security evidence, SOC 2 reports, penetration tests, contractual terms, incident notification, subcontractors, monitoring, and offboarding. Question 19. What security logs are most important for investigations, and how would you protect their integrity? I want logs that answer who did what, from where to which asset, and whether it succeeded. For security investigations, identity, endpoint, network, application, database, cloud control plane, and privileged access logs are essential. I would standardize timestamps, protect log integrity, centralize retention, and restrict access. In banking, logs support investigations, fraud correlation, and audit evidence. If logs are incomplete or mutable, incident conclusions become weak. In your answer, talk about identity, endpoint, network, application, database, cloud, and privileged access logs. Mention timestamp standardization, centralized retention, access restriction, integrity protection, investigations, fraud, and audit needs. Question 20. Tell me about a time you had to influence an engineering team to fix a security issue they did not prioritize. I would start by translating the security concern into business risk, not fear. Then I would bring evidence, exploitability, affected data, regulatory impact, likelihood, and realistic remediation options. If the team cannot fix immediately, I would propose compensating controls and a time-bound exception. Senior security engineers need influence without ownership authority. My goal is to make the secure path practical while keeping accountability visible and documented. Be sure to frame this as a senior-level behavioral answer. Cover business risk translation, evidence, exploitability, regulatory impact, practical remediation, compensating controls, exceptions, influence without authority, and accountability. If you are still with us, congratulations. You are much ahead of the rest and serious about preparing for your interview. We hope we were able to add value to your preparation and create some helpful content. Do not forget to like and share this video. Your small act can do great things for us.